So this fall we started a book study, Robert Brumman's book, Living Originally, and we worked with this for, several months, going through the first chapters, the first 5 spiritual practices. Do you remember what they were? Radical self-awareness, deep self-acceptance, unlimited forgiveness, universal benevolence, and compassionate communication. Robert Brumman suggested that we take a month with each of these practices and incorporate them into our lives. They're spiritual practices that we can keep using daily for as long as we live. We rushed through them. I think we did them in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Now we're moving on to the latter half of the book, which is what he calls special practices, because they're special. We don't need to do them ongoing every day for the rest of our lives, but we can use them for a while and find the gifts and the learning that they will provide. And today, we're moving on to Everything is My Teacher. Brumman says there are 2 types of learning. There's like a horizontal learning, which is kind of the traditional, conventional learning. You might learn a new language, you might take a class to deepen a skill or learn a new skill. But he says there's also a kind of learning that he calls that horizontal learning, but there's also a vertical learning, which we can be enlightened and elevated, or we can go deeper into something. So he calls this practice a deeper learning because it takes you places you've never been before. And you probably won't even realize that you've had this deeper learning until that experience has, become kind of history. You can look back and go, that's what I gained from that experience. So with this, you're not gaining more knowledge, you're gaining more wisdom with a deeper learning. For our meditation this morning, I picked that essay by Khalil Gibran because I thought so much of our deep learning comes from really heavy and difficult situations in our lives. The losses, the grief, the adversity, the failure, the pain, the illness, those are big, big things on the road of life, and they can be very disappointing, they can be very difficult, and they're also profound teachers on our spiritual journey. So some of my deepest lessons really did crack the shell for me around my heart. And those losses allowed me to grow into someone wiser and kinder, I think probably more able to love and feel compassion, certainly more able to empathize with other people. And I bet it's the same for you, isn't it? Those experiences really deepened your heart and deepened your ability to show up. I'm going to give you a couple examples from my life, and I know and want you to think about examples from your own life as I talk about this. Right out of high school, I dated an older man, and we lived in different states, and we dated for many years and eventually got married. And our marriage lasted just a short time, just a couple years, and it ended in divorce. And it was really painful. Divorce is a painful experience that many of us have gone through. We wonder what went wrong, our dreams and goals are shattered, and this hurt and disappointment seems to engulf us when that happens. But for me, at least, it was that shell cracking open and a door opening. A door opened so that I could look at myself and my life in a different way. And what felt like the end of the world really turned out to be the beginning of something new, and a path that I needed to go on. Another deep loss that I experienced and a deep learning around this was my dad died about 22 years ago. He died just a few months after our second son was born, Nick. So it was a really odd time because I was so deeply grieving my father's death. and so infatuated in love with this new little baby. It was just incredible. Nick had these giant brown eyes and a beautiful face, and so this grief coupled with this joy, life and death intertwined, and holding on and letting go. And I had such trouble letting go of my sweet dad because I just did not want to believe he was gone. And so again, it was a door opening for me because it led me to explore spirituality. The religion of my parents wasn't working. I needed to find something that meant something to me. And a third example from my life, right at this time of year, about 12 years ago, one of my brothers died unexpectedly. Rich had just turned 60 in November, and he retired from his career, and he was so excited because now he was going to travel and play golf, and incredible guy. And he and I were very, very close. He fell asleep one night and didn't wake up. It was just a huge shock and a huge loss, too. And in that, just unbearable grief and kind of trying to be in denial for a long time with that. But the lesson, I think that lesson is still unfolding for me, that I still have a relationship with my brother, even though his body expired. He's still very much a part of my life. And a couple things I learned from that is how quickly things can change, So if there's something in your heart that you want to say it today. Don't wait. Lessons like these give us an opportunity to feel deeply, to ask questions, which Unity is so good at. We love to ask questions here. Explore, dig deeper, and hopefully you find peace and some growth through the experience. You might notice that the examples that I gave all revolved around people, relationships, and we can experience other kinds of losses too. Being fired or downsized from a job, life-threatening accidents and illnesses, losing some competition to your competitor, stock market crashes, losing your life savings or your kid's college fund. Lots of ways that we experience loss. I have a friend who calls them AFGOs, another frustrating growth opportunity. And they are all opportunities to look within for deeper meaning and deeper learning. Brahmet calls this special practice that we're talking about today, everything is my teacher. It could also be called everyone is my teacher. Jimmy picked our opening song this morning. That was great. I'd like to teach the world to sing. And just as everything is our teacher, we are also teachers to those around us. Unity Love Valley's mission statement is to transform lives through teaching and practicing universal spiritual principles. Relationships, that's where it's at. That's like the learning ground for this stuff. How we interact, how we communicate, how we treat each other. Dawn Marie, your Heart of Unity was awesome. Think about your favorite teachers in school. Great teachers encourage us to learn and grow. They want us to stretch, to think for ourselves, to shine our light. And I'd like you to think about this idea. Some of your greatest teachers are the difficult people in your life. We all have them, don't we? People who challenge us. They might even be in our family. They might be our friends. They are in their family. Co-workers, neighbors, somebody that just kind of rubs us the wrong way. Well, they are our teachers, and we are their teachers as well. I read this the other day. If you don't want to be a doormat, then you have to get up off the floor. Everyone is your teacher is a lesson in how to take care of yourself in relationship with other people. We're not responsible for what others do, but we are responsible for our own words and thoughts and actions. And we can take a look at how our words and actions and our behaviors contribute to dysfunction and discord, or to peace and harmony. So many misunderstandings are simply miscommunication, just hearing something not the way the person intended to say it. So, spiritual practice is a form of discipline, according to Brahma, and he says, and I think we've got this on a slide because it's kind of a big thing. Discipline is to temporarily override short-term desires for greater freedom of self-expression in the long run. Spiritual practice requires patience and trust and practice. He talks about the movie The Karate Kid. Do you remember that movie? We used to watch that with our boys, and it's about this young teenager, Daniel, who wants to learn karate. And he's being taught by an older man who's an expert in karate. And to begin his training, the old man asked Daniel to wax his car. Remember that scene, wax on, wax off? There's a special way that he's supposed to move his hands. And he does that for a while, and then the old man teaches him, or asks him to paint a fence and do certain motions with his hands again. And finally, Daniel gets really frustrated. He doesn't want to learn how to wax cars and paint fences. He wants to learn karate. But these were actually very specific actions that were intended to develop his muscles and his reflexes. So the practice was actually very helpful to Daniel, and it developed his skills in the long run so that he could further his karate training and then eventually meet an opponent and be a skilled karate expert, I guess, himself. Brahma suggests that gentle and persistent practice is the best. And he tells this story to illustrate it. There once was a young Zen student who came to his teacher and asked, "How long will it take me to become enlightened?" Do you ever wonder that? And the teacher responded, this is very encouraging, 10 years. But the student didn't want to wait that long. So he said, well, I want to become enlightened faster than that. So how about if I work really hard and I meditate for 12 hours a day, every day? What then? How long will it take for me to become enlightened? 20 years. We've all been there, haven't we? We want things and we want something, we want it now. But patience, spiritual practice requires patience and practice and trust. It's an investment in our spiritual life. In our spiritual practices, Brahma says that we don't want to destroy our ego. We want to transcend and include our ego. We want to help our ego grow up and discover its purpose. He also talks about humility. Sometimes we think we're the center of the universe, don't we? True humility knows that we don't have all the answers. We are good. We are so very, very good. But we also have things to learn. We need to be teachable. And how can we be teachable? It takes a willingness to learn and to keep growing. And sometimes that means emptying our cups. Our cups are full of knowledge and life experience, and we think we know it all. We think we got everything we need in our little cup. We've got all the answers, and our cups are full. They're so full that there's no room for anything else, nothing to be added. So we need to be accustomed to using what many people call the beginner's mind. And that's approaching something as if it's for the first time. So empty your cup. Become like a little child. Yeah. Be willing to accept new ideas and new teachings. To illustrate this, Brahma found a quote from the Tao Te Ching. Do we have that too on the slide? Yield and overcome. Bend and be straight. Empty and be full. Don't you love that stuff? He also, Oh, am I doing that? He also includes Jesus' teaching from Matthew chapter 18, verse 4. Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Right now I want to pass a couple of baskets. These just have little slips of paper where you take one and pass it on. They're all the same, even though they're some different colors. I'll talk about it in a minute. It's just a little reminder. So now we come to the how-to portion of, all his chapters have the, okay, how do I do this at the end of them? So this is the how-to implement everything as my teacher. And I invite you to work on these ideas and incorporate them into your life for the next 30 days. So first, remind yourself as many times a day as you can that everyone, everything, this day, this experience, this moment in your life, this traffic jam, this spilled milk, this whatever is your teacher. And that's what your little piece of paper says. And I just invite you to put that in your pocket and keep that with you as a reminder. Many times a day, everything is my teacher. Especially when you're feeling some strong resistance to a specific person or situation, or when you feel anger or frustrated or resentful or judgmental. Ever go there? Another time to really pull this out is when you have a strong attachment to an outcome. Brumett says, big attachment, ? Big resistance, ? Big learning opportunity. His next suggestion for us is to keep a journal. So write about your day, your experiences and your feelings, and describe an event and your feelings about that event. And if it involves another person, then kind of try to put yourself in that person's shoes and write from their perspective about the situation. And try writing from a perspective of your higher self, a wise outside witness, an observer self. And just see what information and clarity you get from that activity. An alternative to journal writing is to reflect on your experience and feel and give expression to it in other ways, physical ways, like artwork, like a drawing, a painting, a dancing, something that uses your body. And finally, a helpful technique, which is kind of involved, but he describes a practice that I learned in psychosynthesis teachings. And this can be very effective, and it's a little complicated to describe, but I'm going to try. It's kind of like role-playing, and you might feel a little self-conscious or awkward at first, but I encourage you to give it a try. Experiment with it. You'll need 2 chairs, so in a room where you know you're going to have some privacy, pull up 2 chairs, make kind of like kitchen chairs, face to face. And you sit down in one, and facing the other chair, in your own voice, talk to the situation, pretend the situation or the person is in that chair facing you, and just talk to it. Tell it your story, tell it your truth. Let your feelings come out about this difficult situation. And just get it all out. And then pause, take a couple breaths, get centered, and then get up out of your chair and move into the other chair. And take a moment to feel from that perspective. Now you are the person that you're mad at or the situation that is frustrating you. And speak back from that position back to yourself. And you can do this a number of times. Sometimes I do this and go back and forth several times to get it all out. But it is a way to get the deeper meaning and perspectives that come up that you hadn't thought of before. A way to grow in understanding and wisdom about the situation. You get to a place where you're free of judgment and attachment to outcome, and it works, so try it. Take this month to work with this spiritual practice that Everything is my teacher. And let me know how it goes for you. Let me know what you learn. And remember what Brahman says, that patience, practice, and trust the process. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Richard Bach. He wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Illusions, what else, A Bridge Across Forever, kind of metaphysical writing. But he said, there's no such thing as a problem without a gift for you in its hands. Isn't that beautiful? So take that with you, that everything is here for your healing and for your growth. Everything that presents in your life is an opportunity. Everything is your teacher. The divine light within me recognizes and honors the divine light in you. Namaste.